The kitchen was filled with the warm smell of blinny and honey when the world stopped spinning. Serena Whitmore stood frozen at the stove, the wooden spoon trembling in her hand as she stared at the 5-year-old girl sitting at the granite countertop. Ivy Kensington had just spoken for the first time in 2 years, and her words had shattered the morning silence like glass hitting concrete. "Who hurt you, Serena?" The child's voice was small, hesitant, rusty from disuse. But the question was clear, painfully clear, and it hung in the air between them like a living thing. Serena's breath caught in her throat. Her heart hammered against her ribs like it wanted to break free. The wooden spoon clattered onto the cold marble floor. The security alarm had gone off just minutes before. Someone had tried to access the service entrance of the estate. The security team had handled it quickly, professionally, turning away the intruder before he could even set foot on the main grounds. But Serena had heard the commotion. She had heard the angry voice screaming through the intercom, demanding to see her. She knew immediately who it was. Marcus, her ex-husband, the man she had escaped from 3 months ago, the man who had sworn he would find her no matter where she ran. And Ivy had seen the fear on Serena's face. The little girl had been coloring at the kitchen counter, her dark hair falling over her drawing paper, her small fingers clutching a purple crayon. She had looked up when the alarm sounded. She had watched Serena's face go pale. She had seen the terror flash across those warm green eyes. She had seen the way Serena's hands shook as she gripped the edge of the counter like it was the only thing keeping her from collapsing. She had seen everything, and something inside Ivy had broken open. "Ivy," Nikolai Kensington's voice cracked. He set his coffee mug down on the nearest surface without looking. It tipped over, dark coffee spreading across the granite countertop. He didn't notice. He couldn't take his eyes off his daughter. "Ivy, sweetheart, you're talking." The child turned to look at her father, her blue eyes so much like her late mother's swimming with tears. "Daddy," she whispered. Then louder, stronger. "Daddy." Someone scared Serena. Someone was yelling at the gate. I saw. Serena couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt around her. This wasn't how this moment was supposed to happen. For 2 years, Nikolai had been waiting, hoping, praying to hear his daughter's voice again. He had hired specialists, therapists, doctors. He had tried everything. And now, on this random Saturday morning, Ivy was finally speaking. But instead of joy, the moment was soaked in fear and pain. "Ivy, sweetie," Serena managed to say, her voice shaking. She moved around the counter slowly, carefully, the way you approach a frightened bird. "I'm okay. I'm safe here. Your daddy's security team took care of it." "But you were scared," Ivy insisted, her small face scrunched up with concern far too mature for a 5-year-old. "I saw you. You looked like I felt when Mommy Katya." The child's voice broke and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Nikolai was across the kitchen in 3 strides. He scooped Ivy up from her stool and held her against his chest, his own steel gray eyes wet with tears. "It's okay, baby. It's okay. You're okay. Serena's okay." He looked at Serena over his daughter's head, his expression a mixture of wonder, confusion, and something deeper. Everyone is safe, but Serena could see the questions in his eyes. Who was at the gate? Who was trying to reach her? Who had hurt her badly enough that a child could recognize that kind of fear? They had grown close over the past 3 weeks, she and Nikolai, closer than employer and employee should be. He knew some of her story. He knew she had left a bad situation. He knew she was trying to rebuild her life, but he didn't know the details. He didn't know about Marcus's rage, about the bruises hidden under long sleeves, about the 4 years she had spent walking on eggshells, about the night she had finally run with nothing but a backpack and the clothes on her back. He didn't know how broken she had been when she arrived at his door looking for work. And now his daughter was calling her mommy. Ivy pulled back from Nikolai's chest, her small hands framing his face. "Daddy, I want to talk now. I have so many things to say." But first she turned her head to look at Serena first. "I need to know, miss. Serena is safe. Like you keep me safe. Can you keep her safe too? Can you?" The question was so earnest, so pure in its simplicity, that Serena felt her knees weaken. This child, this precious little girl who had been locked in her own silence for 2 years, had found her voice again because she wanted to protect someone else. Not because of her own pain, but because she recognized pain in another person. Nikolai's jaw tightened. He looked at Serena with an intensity that made her stomach flip. "Yes," he said firmly. "I can keep her safe. I will keep her safe. Both of you. Always." "Promise?" Ivy asked. "I promise, princess. I promise." The little girl nodded, satisfied. Then she wriggled out of her father's arms and walked over to Serena, reaching up to take her hand. "It's okay, Mommy. Ivy said softly. Daddy's promises are real. He never breaks them. He promised Mommy Katya he would take care of me, and he does it every day. So if he promises to take care of you, he will. Serena dropped to her knees so she was eye level with the child. Tears streamed down her face and she didn't bother to wipe them away. How did you get so wise? She whispered. Ivy shrugged a gesture so childlike it was almost funny. I had a lot of time to think. When you don't talk, you watch people more. You see things. She paused. I saw you were sad when you first came here. Sad like Daddy. Sad like me. But then you started to smile. Real smiles. The kind that reach your eyes. Daddy smiles like that now too. She tilted her head. When he looks at you, Nikolai made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. He ran a hand through his disheveled dark curly hair. He was still in his pajama pants and a dark gray t-shirt. This wasn't how he had planned to spend his Saturday morning, but nothing about the last 2 years had gone according to plan. Ivy, he said gently. Why didn't you talk before? The doctors said you could. They said there was nothing physically wrong. We've been so worried. The child's face grew somber. She looked down at her feet, her small shoulders hunching. I saw something bad. The day Mommy Katya died. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I saw our car. I saw the man with the gun. I saw. She swallowed hard. I saw everything, Daddy, and I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't make the words come out. They got stuck. And then at the funeral, everyone was so sad. And I thought if I talked about what I saw, it would make everyone sadder. So I just stopped. I stopped talking altogether. She took a shaky breath. It seemed easier. The room was silent except for the sound of 3 people breathing, 3 hearts breaking and mending at the same time. Nikolai knelt beside Serena, forming a small circle with his daughter between them. Oh, Ivy. Oh, baby. You've been carrying that alone all this time? Ivy nodded, fresh tears falling. But then Mommy Serena came, and she was carrying something heavy too. I could see it. The way she jumped when doors closed too fast. The way she checked the locks every night. The way she always sat where she could see the doorways. She looked at Serena. Just like me, I thought. She continued. I thought if I could see her get better, maybe I could get better too. And then this morning, when that man came, when I saw her scared face, I knew I had to use my voice. Because maybe if I had used my voice before, if I had told someone what I saw about Mommy Katya, maybe someone could have helped. She squeezed Serena's hand tighter. But I can help now. I can tell Daddy that Serena needs protecting. So that's what I did. Serena pulled the child into a hug, holding her close. You are the bravest person I have ever met, she said fiercely. Do you know that? You are so brave, Ivy Kensington. Nikolai wrapped his arms around both of them, creating a cocoon of safety and warmth. The 3 of them stayed like that for a long moment, healing in each other's presence. Finally, Nikolai pulled back, his hand cupping his daughter's cheek. I need you to tell me what you saw about Mommy Katya. His voice was gentle but serious. Not right now, but soon. When you're ready. Can you do that? Ivy nodded. I can do that. I'm ready now. Then she turned to Serena. And I need to know, she continued, looking up with clear blue eyes. Who was at the gate? Who tried to get in? Who hurt you before you came here? Serena swallowed hard. This was the moment she had been dreading. But Ivy had been brave enough to speak after 2 years of silence. The least Serena could do was be brave enough to tell the truth. His name is Marcus Webb, she said quietly. He was my husband. We were together for 4 years. He wasn't a good person. Not to me. And when I finally left, he told me he would find me. He told me I couldn't hide from him. He told me I was his and I would always be his. She took a shaky breath. I thought I had covered my tracks. I thought I was safe. But he must have. He must have found me somehow. He tracked you, Nikolai finished grimly. His expression had gone cold, the warmth in his steel gray eyes replaced by something harder. Let me guess he's a cop? Serena nodded, surprised. How did you know? Because only someone in law enforcement would have the resources to track someone this carefully. And because men like that. His jaw clenched. I know the type. He stood, his movements controlled but tense. Stay here with Ivy. Don't leave this room. He pulled out his phone and began typing rapidly. I'm calling my head of security. We're going to handle this right now. Today. He paused, his expression softening. He's never going to get near you again, Serena. I promise you that. But Nikolai, I don't want to bring my problems into your home, into Ivy's life. Maybe I should just... No. His voice was sharp, brooking no argument. Don't even finish that sentence. You're not leaving. You're not running again. You're staying right here where you're safe, where Ivy needs you. He paused, his expression softening. Where I need you. The admission hung in the air between them. Ivy looked up at Serena with wide eyes. See? I told you. Daddy's promises are real, and he likes you. I can tell. He looks at you like he used to look at Mommy Katya. She tilted her head. When he was happy, Serena's heart clenched. She looked at Nikolai, really looked at him, and saw the truth in his daughter's words. She saw the care, the concern, the something more that had been building between them over the past 3 weeks. She saw a man who had been broken by loss, just like she had been broken by abuse. She saw a man who was trying to be strong for his daughter. She saw a man who was offering her safety without asking for anything in return. She saw a man she was falling in love with. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Good. Nikolai's shoulders relaxed slightly. Now let's get this sorted out. All of it. No more secrets. No more silence. We're going to talk about everything. What Ivy saw, what you've been running from, all of it. And then we're going to figure out how to move forward. Together. Together, Ivy echoed, reaching out to take both of their hands. Like a family. Serena looked down at the little girl, at her earnest face and hopeful eyes, and felt something shift in her chest. Like a door that had been locked for years suddenly swinging open. Like light pouring into dark corners. Like hope. Like a family, she agreed. And in that moment, standing in the sunlit kitchen with blini cooling on the stove and coffee spreading across the counter, 3 broken people began the work of healing together. It wouldn't be easy. There would be hard conversations ahead, painful revelations, moments of fear and doubt. But they would face it together. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak up, and sometimes the kindest thing you can do is listen. And sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places, in the most unexpected ways, when you're not even looking for it. This was just the beginning. Have you ever met someone who changed everything just by being brave enough to speak? Someone whose courage gave you permission to face your own fears? Ivy found her voice again because she wanted to protect someone she loved. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next healing story. 3 months ago, Serena ran in the middle of the night. She remembers that moment exactly. Every second and every minute burned into her memory like a scar that would never fade. Marcus came home late that night, his breath thick with the stench of whiskey, his eyes clouded by drunkenness and a rage that had no clear source. She had learned to read those signs after 4 years together. The way he slammed the door harder than usual. The way he threw his keys onto the table instead of setting them down gently. The way he said her name in a voice as cold as steel. Serena, just one word, and it made the blood in her veins turn to ice. She was standing in the kitchen, pretending to wash dishes even though she had finished a long time ago. She did not turn around. She did not dare to. She just stood there, her back rigid, her hands sunk in warm water that was slowly going cold, and she waited. His footsteps were heavy on the wooden floor. One step, one sound, one knife driving into her heart. Then his hand grabbed her hair and yanked her head back. Where did you go this afternoon? Where had she gone? She had gone to buy medicine, painkillers for the bruises he had left on her the week before. But she could not say that. She could never say that. I went to the grocery store, she said, her voice trembling, to buy things to cook for you. Silence. Terrible silence. Then a mocking snort of laughter. The grocery store closes at 8. You got home at 9. For 1 hour, where were you, Serena? She did not have time to answer. His hand tightened around her throat and shoved her into the wall. She could not breathe. She clawed at his arm, her legs kicking wildly in the air. The world began to blur, bright spots dancing in front of her eyes. Then he let go. She collapsed onto the floor, coughing violently, tears streaming down her face, not from pain, but from pure fear. Marcus stood over her, looking down with a gaze she had seen far too many times. The gaze of an owner staring at what belongs to him. Next time, he said coldly. You tell me before you go anywhere. Understand? She nodded. She always nodded. Marcus walked away into the bedroom, leaving her there on the freezing kitchen floor. She heard the bed creak when he lay down. A few minutes later, his snoring filled the air. That was when Serena knew. Tonight, or never. She crawled up, not daring to stand upright for fear of making a sound. She slipped into the living room, where she had hidden a small backpack behind an old wardrobe in the corner. Inside were a few changes of clothes, some cash she had saved by cutting back on grocery money each week, and the prepaid phone she had bought in secret 2 months earlier. She took nothing else. No photos, no keepsakes, nothing that could make her hesitate. She opened the back door as quietly as she could and slid out into the cold Chicago night. It was raining, a fine drizzle like watery dust. She had no umbrella, she had no heavy coat. She had only trembling legs and a heart hammering madly inside her chest. She ran. She ran down the alley behind the house, through the neighborhood lying silent in the dead of night, across streets she had never walked alone at this hour. She ran until her lungs felt as if they would burst, until her legs could not carry her another step, until she collapsed onto a bench at a bus stop 3 miles from the house she had once called home. She sat there, soaked through, shaking, and for the first time in 4 years, she truly cried. Not crying from pain, not crying from fear, but crying from relief, from freedom, from finally doing what she believed she would never be brave enough to do. She had escaped, but in her heart, she knew this was not the end. Marcus would find her. He had sworn it, and he was a police officer. He had resources she did not. He had coworkers willing to help. He had an entire system on his side. And her? She had only a small backpack, and the fragile hope that somewhere out there was a place he could not reach. Street Mary's shelter sat on the far southern edge of Chicago, an old red brick building with narrow windows and a heavy iron door. Serena found her way there on the 3rd day after the night she ran, after spending 2 nights sleeping at a bus station and in a church that opened its doors to the homeless. Patricia Holloway, the shelter manager, was the first woman who looked Serena in the eyes without judgment. She was around 50, her silver hair twisted into a neat bun at the nape of her neck, her warm brown eyes seasoned by life. She did not ask much that first day. She simply gave Serena a clean bed, a set of dry clothes, and a bowl of hot soup. "You can tell me when you are ready," Patricia said. "Or you can tell me nothing at all. Here, we do not force anyone." Serena stayed at Street Mary's for 2 months. Those 2 months were the longest days of her life. The shelter had 20 beds for women, and every woman there carried a story of her own. Some were running from husbands, like she was. Some had been thrown out because they could not pay rent. Some were struggling with addiction and trying to get clean. The look in their eyes, the look of people who had lost everything and were trying to find themselves again. Serena did not sleep much in the first weeks. Every night she lay on the narrow bed, her eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, her heart skittering at every unfamiliar sound. She dreamed of Marcus. She dreamed of his hand clamped around her throat. She dreamed of his cold voice echoing inside her head. "You belong to me. Forever you belong to me." She would wake drenched in sweat, needing a few seconds to remember where she was. The most frightening thing was not the nightmares. The most frightening thing was that Marcus found her twice. The first time, she was at another shelter on the north side of the city. He showed up at the gate in his police uniform, telling the security guard he was looking for his missing wife. She had to slip out the back door and run to Street Mary's in the middle of the night. The second time, he went to the home of an old friend, the only person Serena had dared to contact for help. That friend called her, voice shaking, and said Marcus had come asking questions, and he looked very angry. After that, Serena never reached out to anyone from her old life again. Patricia was the only one who knew the whole story. She listened without interrupting when Serena spoke about 4 years of a marriage from hell, about bruises hidden beneath long sleeves, about the restraining order she had managed to get, and how it meant nothing when Marcus's co-workers always looked the other way. Patricia did not offer cheap comfort. She simply held Serena's hand and said one plain sentence. "You cannot keep running forever, Serena. It is time to build a life again." 18-0. One afternoon near the end of the 2nd month, Patricia called Serena into her office. She laid a newspaper clipping on the desk, circled in red ink. "I think I may have found what you need," she said. "A job, a place to live, and most important," she looked straight into Serena's eyes, "security that not even a police officer can get past." Serena picked up the clipping and read the bold print. "Wanted. Childcare provider and housekeeper. Live-in. Absolute confidentiality." For the first time in 3 months, Serena felt a thin thread of hope flicker inside her. Serena sat on the narrow bed in the shared dormitory, the prepaid phone resting in her palm, slick with sweat. She had stared at the number on the newspaper clipping for 30 minutes, trying to gather enough courage to press call. Patricia had told her about the Kensington family. They were very wealthy, fiercely private, and protected by a security system stricter than anything Serena had ever known. The man who owned the house was a powerful businessman, a widower, raising his young daughter alone. 5 housekeepers had come and gone over the past 2 years, none of them fit. "They need someone special," Patricia had said. "Not someone perfect, someone who understands pain." Serena drew a long breath, and she called. The phone rang twice before someone picked up. Kensington residence. A man's voice, low, cold, and strangely tired. Not the tiredness of someone who had not slept, but the tiredness of someone who had carried too much for too long. "Hello, my name is Serena Whitmore. I'm calling about the housekeeper and childcare position." Silence for a few seconds. Then the voice returned, still cold, but edged with a flicker of curiosity. "What experience do you have?" "I worked as a nurse for 2 years before my circumstances changed. I know how to care for people. I'm patient, and I need somewhere safe to start over." She hesitated. "I'll be honest with you. I'm running from a violent marriage. I have a restraining order, but my former husband is a police officer. That order doesn't do much." She did not know why she told the truth like that. Maybe she was too tired to pretend anymore. Maybe because if he was going to reject her for her past, it was better to know at the beginning than to hope and then be crushed. The silence lasted longer than before. Serena thought the man would hang up. She had braced herself for it, but instead, his voice came again, a little softer. "I have a daughter, 5 years old. Her name is Ivy." He paused, as if weighing each word. "She doesn't speak. It's been 2 years. Not a single word since her mother died." Serena felt her heart tighten. "The doctors say there's nothing physically wrong," the man continued. "She can speak. She just chooses not to. The previous housekeepers all tried to force her, tried to fix her like she was something broken that needed repairing. I don't need that." His voice hardened. "I need someone patient, someone who accepts her as she is. Someone who doesn't try to change her just because her silence makes them uncomfortable." Serena closed her eyes, and the image of herself rose up in her mind. 4 years of silent endurance. 4 years of not daring to speak the truth. She understood what it meant to lose your voice, even in a different way. "I understand," she said softly. "I understand that feeling, when the words get stuck inside, when silence becomes the only way to protect yourself." The line went quiet again. Serena could hear the man breathing on the other end. "Can you come in for an interview this afternoon?" he asked at last. 3 o'clock. I'll text you the address." "Yes," Serena said, her voice trembling with relief. "I'll be there. Tonighting for Tate. One more thing, Miss Whitmore." His voice was serious now, but no longer cold. "We have security 24/7. No one gets in unless I allow it. No one." For the first time in 3 months, Serena felt like she could breathe. Patricia drove Serena to the Kensington estate, arriving at exactly 3 o'clock that afternoon. The whole way there, Serena sat in silence in the passenger seat, her hands clenched together in her lap, trying to steady the wild rhythm pounding inside her chest. When the car turned onto the road leading into the Gold Coast, Serena began to understand this was not an ordinary family. The mansions lining the street grew larger with every block, more lavish, more untouchable, until they stopped in front of a black iron gate rising more than 3 meters high, its scrollwork intricate, security cameras fixed at every angle. "You'll be all right," Patricia said, giving Serena's hand a gentle squeeze. "Just be yourself. That's the only thing you need to do." Serena nodded, drew a deep breath, and stepped out of the car. The gate opened after she pressed the buzzer and gave her name. She walked along a stone path into the grounds, and with every step she felt more overwhelmed. The mansion rose before her like a castle from a fairy tale, Gothic revival architecture with gray stone walls, soaring stained glass windows, and sharp spires reaching into the afternoon sky. The gardens were trimmed to perfection, rose bushes in full bloom along the walkway, and somewhere nearby came the sound of water from a fountain. But what caught Serena's attention most was not the luxury. It was the men in black suits spaced throughout the property, their cold eyes sweeping over her from head to toe. Security, not the ordinary kind hired by rich families. This was the kind of security worn by men accustomed to danger, men who had faced real threats and survived. She swallowed hard, climbed the stone steps, and knocked. The heavy oak door opened, and Serena came face to face with the man she had spoken to on the phone that morning. Nikolai Kensington was taller than she had imagined, probably over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and a solid frame that looked as if it had been forged from steel. His dark hair, loosely curled, was combed back, revealing a sharply angled face with high cheekbones and a square jaw. A faint scar ran from his temple down his left cheekbone, like the mark of some battle long ago. But it was his eyes that held her, gray as metal, cold as ice, and yet deep inside them was a sadness she recognized at once. The sadness of someone who had lost what mattered most. "Miss Whitmore." It was not a question. It was a confirmation. "Yes, Mr. Kensington." He nodded and stepped aside, motioning her in. Inside, the estate was even more impressive than it looked from the outside. The main hall stretched wide beneath a soaring ceiling, a crystal chandelier glittering overhead, and a spiral staircase curving up to the floors above. Oil paintings hung along the walls, furniture upholstered in red velvet, and polished marble floors. Everything spoke of wealth and of power. But then Serena noticed other details. A cloth doll lying on the stairs, a few coloring books scattered across the sofa, a tiny pair of pink shoes tossed carelessly in a corner, and on the refrigerator door in the kitchen, which she glimpsed through a doorway, crayon drawings were taped everywhere. This was not only an estate. It was a home trying to live something like a normal life in the middle of what was not normal at all. "Sit," Nikolai said, leading her into a study. The room was flooded with light from a large window, lined with bookshelves that reached the ceiling and a desk of black oak. On the desk, beside a stack of documents and a computer, lay a framed photograph turned face down. He sat across from her, his gray eyes fixed on hers as if he were trying to read every thought she carried. "You said your former husband is a police officer," he began, blunt and direct. Serena had not expected him to ask so plainly. She drew in a breath. "Dangerous enough that I left everything behind and ran in the night. Dangerous enough that he found me twice, even when I tried to erase every trace. Dangerous enough that—" she hesitated. "Dangerous enough that I don't know whether I would survive if he finds me again." Nikolai said nothing. He only looked at her, his face unreadable. Then he nodded, as if her answer had confirmed something he had already known. "Here," he said slowly. "No one can lay a hand on you unless I allow it. Not the police, not anyone." The way he said it made Serena believe him. This was not an empty promise. This was fact. When the conversation in the study ended, Nikolai rose and motioned for Serena to follow. They climbed the spiral staircase and walked down a long hallway lined with family photographs. Serena noticed one woman appearing in most of them, honey blonde hair, a smile bright as summer sun, and clear ocean blue eyes. Katya, Nikolai's late wife, the mother Ivy had lost. Nikolai stopped at a door painted lavender purple, the doorknob decorated with tiny, delicate flowers. He knocked softly twice. "Ivy, there's someone Daddy wants you to meet." No answer. "Of course." The little girl did not speak. Nikolai opened the door and stepped inside, with Serena behind him. Ivy's room looked like a small fairy tale made real. Pale violet walls, white curtains fluttering in the breeze, a princess bed with a canopy of sheer gauze. On the bookshelf sat dozens of stuffed animals of every kind, from teddy bears to unicorns, from a pink rabbit to a gray elephant, and in the center of the room, seated on a plush, furry rug, was a tiny girl with hair black as her father's and eyes blue as her mother's. Ivy did not look up when they entered. She was holding a brown teddy bear, turning it slowly in her hands, her gaze fixed on empty space as if the outside world did not exist. "Ivy," Nikolai said gently, his voice softening as though he were speaking to the most precious thing in his life. "This is Miss Serena. She may come work here, take care of the house, and stay with you. Would you like to say hello?" No response. Ivy remained still, her blue eyes not turning toward them. Serena watched the child, and something inside her quietly melted. She recognized that look, the look of someone trying to become invisible, trying to shrink so no one would see them, so no one could hurt them again. She had seen that look in the mirror for 4 years. Without waiting for Nikolai to say anything else, Serena slowly lowered herself to the floor beside the rug where Ivy sat. She did not sit across from her. She did not stare into her face. She sat beside her, facing the same direction, as if they were two people looking out at the same world. "Your bear is so sweet," Serena said softly, her voice making no demands, offering no pressure. "When I was little I had a teddy bear too, but I lost it. I had to leave it behind when I had to go." Silence. But Serena saw Ivy tilt her head, just a little, as if she were listening. "I know you don't want to talk," Serena went on, still looking straight ahead instead of at the child. "That's okay. Sometimes I don't want to talk either. Sometimes silence is easier, safer." And he said, a moment passed. Then, very slowly, Ivy turned. She did not look at Serena's face. She looked at Serena's sleeve, where an old bruise still showed faintly beneath the thin fabric. Those ocean blue eyes blinked once, twice, as if something was clicking into place. Then Ivy did something that left both Serena and Nikolai stunned. The little girl held out the teddy bear and placed it into Serena's hand. Serena took the bear, feeling the softness of its artificial fur beneath her fingers. She looked at Ivy, and for the first time, Ivy looked back. Those clear blue eyes were no longer empty. There was something there now, fragile but real. A connection, an understanding. "I'll hold your bear for you," Serena whispered. Or do you want me to give it back?" Ivy shook her head. Then she pointed at the bear and pointed at Serena. "You want to give it to me?" Serena asked. A small, gentle nod. Serena felt her eyes sting. She pressed the bear to her chest as if it were the most precious gift she had ever received. Behind her, Nikolai stood silent in the doorway, and the steel gray in his eyes was no longer cold. There was astonishment there, and there was hope. "She has never offered something to a stranger on her own," he said, his voice rough. "Not once. Never." Serena did not speak. She simply sat there beside Ivy, the teddy bear in her arms, and for the first time in 6 months, she felt like she belonged somewhere. Serena was hired that very afternoon. Nikolai did not explain much. He only looked at her with those steel gray eyes and said a single sentence. "You start tomorrow. Your room is on the 3rd floor. Victor will take you to get your things." I take Sast. Viktor Kozlov, head of security, was a Russian man around 45, built like a bear, with a face that never showed emotion. He drove Serena back to Street Mary's to collect the few belongings she had, and he did not speak a word the entire way. But when she stepped out of the car, he said quietly, "Mr. Kensington doesn't trust easily. You must have done something special." The 3 weeks that followed were the most peaceful days Serena had known in years. She quickly learned the rhythm of the estate. Ivy woke at 6:45 every morning, took 10 minutes to choose her clothes, then came down to the kitchen for breakfast at 7:30. The little girl liked scrambled eggs with cheese, orange juice in a blue cup, and milk in a pink cup. She brushed her teeth for exactly 2 minutes, no more and no less, her eyes fixed on the timer on her electric toothbrush. Everything had order, everything had rules, everything had control. Serena understood why. When the outside world is chaotic and frightening, small routines become anchors. She had been like that too. She still was. Rosa Mendez, the family's cook, was the first person who made Serena feel truly welcome. She was around 58, her silver hair pinned neatly back, her hands rough from years of work but always warm when she took Serena's. She taught Serena to cook the Russian dishes Ivy loved: blini with honey, bright red borscht, dark bread with butter. She remembers her mother through these foods, Rosa explained. Katya always cooked them for her every weekend. Ivy did not speak, but she communicated in her own way. She nodded or shook her head to answer questions. She pointed to what she wanted. She drew pictures to express her feelings, colorful drawings of a house, trees, and 3 people standing side by side, with one person always crossed out in black. What struck Serena most was the way Ivy began to follow her everywhere. If Serena folded laundry in the laundry room, Ivy sat beside her, helping stack tiny pairs of socks. If Serena wiped the windows, Ivy stood close, her finger tracing meaningless shapes on the fogged glass. If Serena read in the library, Ivy brought her picture book and sat pressed close, shoulder to shoulder, as if that closeness was what she needed to feel safe. But Serena noticed other things too. Things that made her heart ache. Ivy always sat where she could see the doorway. She startled at every loud noise. She checked the lock on her bedroom window every night before she slept. She never turned her back to the door, never stood in the middle of the room, never placed herself anywhere without a way out. Serena recognized those habits because she did the same things. She sat where she could see the exits. She flinched when a door slammed. She checked locks every night, sometimes twice, 3 times, until she could finally believe she was safe. They were alike, she and Ivy, 2 people from different worlds, carrying the same wordless fear on their shoulders. One evening, as Serena read to Ivy before bedtime, the little girl suddenly lifted her head and looked straight into Serena's eyes. Those ocean blue eyes were clear, but older than her years, as if she had seen far too much, far too soon, for a 5-year-old. Then Ivy raised her hand and touched Serena's wrist, where a faint scar still showed faintly beneath the skin. She did not say anything, but Serena understood. "I see it. I know. I hurt like that too." Serena took that tiny hand, held it tight in her own, and whispered, "We're going to be all right, both of us, and one day, everything will be all right." Ivy nodded, then curled into Serena's lap, closed her eyes, and fell asleep in Serena's arms. It was the first time Ivy had chosen to let anyone besides her father hold her. Nikolai Kensington was a ghost in his own home. He left before the sun came up, and he returned after Ivy was already fast asleep. In those first days, Serena rarely saw him, only the traces of his presence. A cup of coffee gone cold on the desk, late-night meetings in the sitting room with men in black suits speaking Russian, the sound of a car pulling away into the dark and coming back before the sky turned light. But every night, no matter how late he came home, he went to Ivy's room. Serena discovered this in the second week. She was walking down the hall to get water when she saw his silhouette outside his daughter's door. He did not go in. He only stood there, his forehead resting against the wooden frame, one hand pressed to the door as if he were trying to touch something on the other side that he could not reach. In the dim hallway light, his face was no longer cold as steel. It was broken, exhausted. It was the face of a man carrying a grief so heavy he did not know where to set it down. Serena retreated quietly, not wanting to interrupt that private moment. But from that night on, she began to see Nikolai differently. She realized he was not cold. He was only trying to be strong, trying to keep everything from collapsing, trying to be all that Ivy needed, while he himself was coming apart from the inside. Victor told her about Katya one afternoon, when they happened to be drinking tea together in the kitchen. She had been the light of their boss, the Russian man said, his voice low and far away. She knew who he was, knew what he did, and she still loved him. When she died, part of him died with her. Serena did not ask about Nikolai's work. She did not need to. She had seen enough to understand. She saw the men in black lower their heads when Nikolai walked past. She saw Victor always carrying a gun beneath his suit jacket. She heard the late-night phone calls Nikolai answered in clipped Russian, his voice cold as ice. She saw the way people spoke his name, with fear, not simple respect. Nikolai Kensington was not an ordinary businessman. He was something more dangerous, more powerful, and darker. But strangely, Serena was not afraid. She had lived with a dangerous man for 4 years, a man wearing the mask of a good person, dressed in a police uniform, torturing her behind closed doors. Marcus was dangerous in a hidden way, petty, cruel to those weaker than him. Nikolai was different. His danger was not aimed at her. It was a shield, not a weapon. One evening, near the end of the second week, Serena was showing Ivy a book in the sitting room when Nikolai walked in. He paused in the doorway, looking at the two of them on the rug, Ivy's head resting on Serena's shoulder, the picture book spread open in her lap. Serena looked up and met his gaze. Those steel-gray eyes were no longer cold. There was softness there, gratitude, and something else, something she did not dare to name. "Thank you," he said quietly. Then he turned away and stepped back into the hallway shadows, leaving Serena with her heart racing inside her chest. She did not know when she had started waiting for moments like that. She did not know when his eyes had become something she searched for each day. She only knew that under this roof, she was starting to feel something more than safety, and that frightened her more than Marcus ever had. Nikolai did not waste a single second. Right after the three of them stepped out of that embrace in the kitchen, he pulled out his phone and dialed. His voice was steel cold as he spoke in Russian, sharp commands Serena could not understand, but could feel in the weight of every word. Victor appeared within 2 minutes, as if he had been waiting just outside the kitchen door the whole time. The Russian man's face showed nothing, but his eyes were sharper than usual when they landed on Serena. "Report," Nikolai said, short and flat. "Subject is Marcus Webb, 32 years old, an officer with the Chicago Police Department, currently suspended due to an internal affairs investigation related to violent conduct." Victor read from the tablet in his hand, his voice even, like he was reading the weather. "He showed up at the side gate at 8:17 this morning, requested to see his wife. Was refused. He became agitated and threatened to return with a search warrant. Security escorted him off the property." "A search warrant?" Nikolai asked, and his tone turned dangerous enough that Serena felt cold along her spine, even though the words were not aimed at her. "He has no legal basis to obtain one. He is suspended, with no authority." It was an empty threat, but he will come back. "Absolutely." Nikolai was silent for a moment, his gray eyes fixed on the kitchen window, where the garden lay bathed in the pale light of a winter morning. Then he turned to Serena, and his gaze softened, just slightly. "Can you take Ivy upstairs? I need to speak with Victor alone." Serena nodded. She bent down and took Ivy's hand. The little girl stood quietly beside her, ocean blue eyes darting between her father and Serena with a worried look. "Come on, sweetheart," Serena said gently. "Let's go upstairs and play." Ivy did not move right away. She looked up at Nikolai, and then she spoke, her voice small but clear. "Will Daddy protect Serena, Mom?" Nikolai knelt and lifted his daughter's chin so he could look into her eyes. "I already promised, Princess. Have I ever broken my word?" "Never," Ivy answered, with absolute trust. "Then you do not need to worry. Go with Serena, Mom. I will come up later." Serena led Ivy toward the stairs, but as they passed the living room doorway, she heard Nikolai's voice behind her, cold and terrifying in a way she had never heard from him before. "I want to know everything about him. Weaknesses, secrets, the things he hides. And I want it before noon today. And if he comes back? Victor asked. A stretch of silence. Then Nikolai's voice, each word dropping like a piece of ice. If he dares to set foot on this property one more time, I will make him understand why people fear the name Kensington. Serena shivered, but not from fear. From the first time in 6 months, someone was fighting for her. Someone was standing between her and the nightmare. And that person did not hesitate. She kept guiding Ivy up the stairs, her heart skittering in her chest. Behind her, Victor's voice carried up again. I will contact our people inside the police department. And call the lawyer. If he wants to play the law, we will play. If he wants to play another way. He paused. We are ready for that too. Good, Nikolai replied. And Victor, one more thing. Yes, sir. From now on, Serena and Ivy do not leave the estate without an escort. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No exceptions. Understood? Tang. Serena stopped at the top of the staircase, her hand gripping Ivy's tightly, and felt something strange rise in her chest. Not fear, not worry. Protection, shelter. The feeling of being valued so much that a powerful man like Nikolai Kensington was willing to use every resource he had to keep her safe. She had forgotten what that felt like. That afternoon, after Ivy had gone down for her nap, Nikolai knocked on Serena's door. She opened it and found him standing there, still wearing the dark gray t-shirt from that morning. His black curls mussed as if he had run his hand through them too many times. Those steel gray eyes held a seriousness she had never seen in him before. We need to talk, he said. In my study, if you're ready. Serena nodded and followed him downstairs, into the room where they had met for the first time 3 weeks earlier. Late afternoon sunlight poured through the large window, spilling over the floor to the ceiling bookshelves and the black oak desk. The picture frame on the desk was still turned face down, just as it had been before. Nikolai closed the door and gestured for her to sit in the leather chair across from the desk. He did not sit behind it like an employer interviewing an employee. Instead, he pulled another chair close and sat facing her, close enough that their knees nearly touched. I need to know everything, he said, his voice gentle but unshakably firm. Not to judge you, to protect you the right way. I can't fight an enemy I don't understand. Serena drew a deep breath. She had known this moment would come. She had feared it for 3 weeks. But after what had happened that morning, after the way Ivy had spoken so bravely, after Nikolai's promise, she knew she could not keep hiding. I met Marcus 6 years ago, she began, her voice trembling slightly, at a friend's party. He was charming, funny, attentive. He was a police officer, and I thought that meant he was a good man. Someone who protected justice, someone you could trust. A bitter laugh slipped out of her. I was so wrong. We got married after a year of dating. At first, everything was perfect. Then he started to change. Slowly, little by little. He didn't like me going out with friends. He wanted to know where I was all the time. He checked my phone, my email, everything. Ever. Serena looked down at her hands clenched in her lap. I made excuses for him. I thought he was just jealous because he loved me too much. I thought it was a sign of love. It wasn't, Nikolai said quietly. It was a sign of control. She nodded, her eyes stinging. I know that now. Back then I didn't see it, or I didn't want to. The first time he hit me was 8 months after we got married. I came home late because of traffic, and he thought I was lying. He slapped me. Just one slap. Then he cried. He apologized. He swore he would never do it again. She paused, her voice thick and bitter. I believed him, but he did it again. The second time, the third, the 10th. I stopped counting after a year. He didn't just hit. He choked me. He threw things at me. He shoved me down the stairs. Serena pulled up her sleeve, showing a faint scar along her arm. This is from the time he used a piece of broken glass. He said I made him lose control. He said it was my fault. Adiance. Nikolai said nothing. But his jaw clenched so hard Serena could see the muscle twitching beneath his skin. I tried to run twice in the first 2 years. Both times he found me. He was a police officer. He had coworkers everywhere. He had access to information ordinary people don't. And when he found me... She shuddered. He punished me. He said if I ever left again, he would kill me. And I believed him. Because I looked into his eyes and I saw he meant it. Eno, then why did you run anyway? Nikolai asked, his voice rough. Serena looked up, her eyes full of tears. Because that night he was drunk and he choked me until I almost passed out. When I looked into his eyes, I didn't see anger anymore. I saw emptiness. I knew if I stayed one more night, I would die. She swallowed hard. So I waited until he fell asleep. And I ran. I ran with a backpack and $200. I didn't look back. Silence settled between them. Then Nikolai reached out, slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When she did not move, he took her hand, his grip warm and steady. "You survived," he said, low and fierce. "You fought. You got out. That isn't weakness. That is the most extraordinary strength I have ever seen." Tears spilled down Serena's cheeks. She did not try to wipe them away. "He will never touch you again," Nikolai went on, each word a vow. "I swear that to you. If I have to use everything I have, if I have to do anything, he will never hurt you again." Serena looked into those steel-gray eyes and saw something she had never seen in anyone else before. Not pity, not judgment, respect, and resolve. And maybe, just maybe, something that looked like love. Nikolai did not let go of her hand. He sat there, his warm palm holding hers, and Serena could feel the restrained strength in every one of his fingers. This was the hand of a man accustomed to violence, but doing everything he could to be gentle. "You need to understand one thing," Nikolai said, his voice low and slow. "I'm not a good man, not in the way the world defines it. My work, my family, we didn't build this empire on kindness and honesty." He paused, his gray eyes fixed on hers, not turning away, not hiding. "But that also means I have resources ordinary people don't. I have people inside the police department. I have the best lawyers in this city. I have ways to make a man disappear from your life without laying a finger on him." His head tipped slightly. "Or if I have to, I have other ways." Serena swallowed hard. She knew what he was saying. She knew what other ways meant. "Nikolai, I don't want you to do anything illegal because of me. I don't want you to get in trouble." He smiled, faintly, a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Trouble is my daily work, Serena. One corrupt cop who beats his wife isn't what I fear. But there is no but." His voice was final. "You're part of this family now. Ivy needs you. She spoke for the first time in 2 years because of you. Do you know what that means to me?" Serena shook her head, not daring to speak. "It means you did what 10 doctors, 5 therapists, and millions of dollars couldn't do. You reached my daughter. You gave her a reason to speak again." His grip tightened around her hand. "So whether you want it or not, I'm going to protect you. Not because you work here, because you matter. To Ivy and to me." Serena's heart raced. She did not know how to respond to those words. She was used to being dismissed, controlled, treated like an object. She was not used to being valued. "I've already called the lawyer," Nikolai went on, his tone returning to something more professional. "We're going to file for a new restraining order, stronger than the old one. This one will cover this estate and anyone connected to you. At the same time, I will file a complaint against him for harassment and for violating the existing restraining order. But he has co-workers in the department. They'll cover for him. His co-workers don't have more power than mine do." Nikolai said it simply, as if it were an obvious fact. "He thinks he has connections. I'm going to show him what real connections look like." Esoteria. He stood, still holding her hand, drawing her up with him. "From now on, you don't need to worry about Marcus Webb anymore. You only need to focus on one thing." "What?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Nikolai looked at her, and the gray in his eyes softened in the same way she had only seen when he looked at Ivy. "Healing," he said quietly. "You and Ivy, healing together. That's the only thing you need to do. The rest, leave it to me." Serena felt tears rise again, but this time they were not tears of pain. They were the tears of someone who had finally found a harbor. That evening, after dinner, Ivy walked over on her own to where Nikolai and Serena were sitting in the living room. She climbed onto the sofa and sat between the 2 adults, her ocean blue eyes serious in a way no 5-year-old should ever have to be. With one hand she took her father's hand. With the other, she took Serena's, as if she were trying to link them into a circle. "I want to tell it now," Ivy said, her voice small but steady. "About Mama Katya, about that day." Nikolai drew in a sharp breath. Serena felt his body go rigid beside her. For 2 years he had been waiting for this moment, but now that it had arrived, she knew he was afraid of what he would hear, afraid the pain would be torn open all over again. "Are you sure, Princess?" he asked, his voice rough. "You don't have to." "I want to," Ivy nodded with fierce certainty. "I've kept it inside for too long. It's heavy. I want to put it down." Serena gave the child's hand a gentle squeeze, offering silent encouragement. Ivy took a deep breath, and then she began. That day, Mama Katya picked me up from preschool. I was so happy because she promised she would buy me ice cream on the way home. She was singing along with the song on the radio. Mama sang so well, Daddy. She always sang when she drove. Nikolai closed his eyes. A single tear slid down his cheek. Then our car stopped at a red light. I was looking out the window, counting birds on the power line, and then I saw a black car pull up next to us. There was a man sitting inside. The man looked into our car, looked at Mama. Ivy's voice trembled, but she kept going. Then that man took out something. I didn't know what it was at first, but then I heard the bang. It was so loud. The window shattered. Mama pushed me down onto the floor of the car. She laid on top of me. I couldn't see anything anymore, only hear the bangs, hear the glass breaking, hear Mama. She started to cry, big tears rolling down her cheeks. Mama told me to stay there. Mama told me she loved me. And then Mama didn't say anything anymore. Nikolai pulled his daughter into his arms, holding her tight as if he was afraid she might disappear. His shoulders shook with strangled sobs. Serena had never seen him cry. She did not think he could cry. But now, with his child in his arms, he was breaking apart. When the bangs stopped, Ivy went on, her voice choked. I tried to look up. I saw that man get out of the car and walk closer to ours. He looked inside, looked at Mama. Then he saw me. Serena held her breath. He had a snake tattoo on his neck. A black snake, wrapped around his neck. He looked at me for a long time. I thought he was going to shoot me. But he didn't. He turned away, got back in his car, and drove off. If you us. Silence flooded the room. Only Ivy's sobbing, and Nikolai's heavy breathing. I remember his face, Daddy, Ivy said, her voice tiny. I remember the snake tattoo. I wanted to tell you a long time ago. But every time I tried, the words wouldn't come. They got stuck in my throat, and I was scared. I was scared if I said it, that man would come back. He would find me. He would make me like Mama. Nikolai lifted his daughter's face and looked into her water-filled ocean eyes. Listen to me, he said, his voice shaking but fierce. That man can never hurt you. Never. I have found him, a long time ago. He doesn't exist in this world anymore. Ivy blinked. Is he dead, Daddy? He will never hurt anyone again. Serena understood what lived inside those words. She understood what Nikolai had done to avenge his wife. She understood how dark his world could be. But in this moment, watching him hold his child, watching tears slide down his face, she did not see a mafia boss. She saw a father shattered by guilt, because his wife had died instead of him, because his daughter had witnessed what no child should ever witness. I'm sorry, Nikolai whispered into his daughter's hair. I'm sorry you had to see those things. I'm sorry I'm sorry I couldn't protect her. It's time, Sakarada. Ivy pulled back from his arms, her small hands lifting his face, mirroring the gesture she had made that morning. It's not your fault, she said, her voice strangely steady. Mama Katya protected me. Mama loved me, so she protected me. That isn't your fault. That's love. Nikolai gathered her into his arms again, and this time Serena was drawn into that embrace too. The three of them sat there, holding one another in the soft yellow lamplight of the living room, and they cried. They cried for what had been lost. They cried for the pain kept hidden. They cried for secrets that had finally been spoken. But they also cried for relief, for release, for the last wounds laid open to the light, so they could finally begin to heal. Ivy drifted off in her father's arms after she finished telling her story. Nikolai carried his daughter upstairs, laid her into the princess bed beneath its white gauze canopy, tucked the blanket around her with careful hands, and kissed her forehead for a long time. Serena stood in the doorway, watching that powerful man bend over his little girl, and she felt her heart soften in a way she could not control. When they returned downstairs, the house had fallen into silence. Rosa had gone home long ago. Victor and the security team were on duty outside. It was only the two of them now, standing in the living room with firelight from the hearth dancing along the walls. Nikolai poured 2 glasses of red wine, handed one to Serena, and sat down on the sofa. He did not keep his distance the way he had before. He sat right beside her, shoulder nearly brushing shoulder, the warmth of his body reaching her in the sharp chill of a winter night. I owe you an explanation, he said, his voice low and worn. About Katya, about why she died. I have a gift there. Serena did not speak. She simply waited, giving him room to share it in his own way. Katya knew who I was when she agreed to marry me. Nikolai stared into his glass, turning it slowly in his hand. She knew about my work, about my family, about the things we did to build this empire. She wasn't naive, but she loved me. And I loved her so much. I thought love could protect her from everything. A bitter laugh escaped him. I was wrong. That day, the shooting, it was meant for me. His voice tightened. I was supposed to be in that car. I was supposed to pick Ivy up from school. But I got trapped in a meeting. Katya went instead. And my enemies, they didn't know she wasn't me, or maybe they knew and didn't care. Nikolai set his glass down and covered his head with both hands. She died because of me, Serena. Because the people who wanted to kill me killed her instead. Ivy lost her mother because of me. My little girl had to watch her mother get shot because of me. His voice broke. I killed my wife. Serena put her glass down and turned toward him. She lifted her hand, hesitated for a heartbeat, then placed it against his cheek and gently turned his face toward hers. You didn't kill Katya, she said softly, but with quiet certainty. The men with guns killed her. You didn't pull the trigger. You didn't drive that car. You didn't choose that. But if I wasn't, if you weren't who you are, Katya wouldn't have loved you. Ivy wouldn't exist. Serena held his gaze, looking straight into those gray eyes full of pain. You can't change the past. You can only live with it. And you are living. You're raising Ivy. You're keeping your promise to Katya every day. Nikolai looked at her, and something shifted in his eyes. The defenses fell away. The coldness drained out. What remained was simply a man exhausted from carrying guilt for too long. How can you say those things? He asked, his voice rough. After everything you've been through, how can you still look at the world with eyes like that? Serena gave him a sad smile. Because I spent 4 years blaming myself, asking what I did wrong for Marcus to treat me that way. Thinking if I were better, quieter, more perfect, he wouldn't hit me. She shook her head. It took me a long time to understand it wasn't my fault. And this isn't yours either. Silence settled between them. The fire crackled softly in the hearth. Outside, winter wind moved through bare branches. Then Nikolai lifted his hand and placed it over hers, still resting on his cheek. He held her hand there, his warmth seeping into her skin. Katya would have liked you, he said quietly. She would have liked the way you care for Ivy, your gentleness, the strength that lives beneath your softness. I wish I could have met her. She was my light. Nikolai looked into Serena's eyes, and something in that look made her heart miss a beat. When she died, I thought I would never find light again. And now? He didn't answer with words. He only looked at her, his fingers tracing lightly over the back of her hand, and in those steel gray eyes Serena saw the answer. She saw hope. She saw possibility. She saw a future she had never dared to dream of, and for the first time in many years, she wasn't afraid of it. The days that followed drifted by like a dream Serena could not quite believe was real. Nikolai started coming home earlier. Not at midnight the way he used to, but at 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, sometimes even earlier. He would appear in the kitchen doorway while Serena was fixing Ivy an afternoon snack, a bunch of wildflowers in his hand that he said he had picked from the garden. He would sit on the living room floor and work on puzzles with his daughter, and the sound of his laughter filled the house like something new and precious. Ivy changed in a way that was impossible to miss after she found her voice. She talked constantly, as if she were trying to make up for 2 years of silence. She told them about her dreams, about the teddy bear she had named Misha, about the pictures she drew, about everything. And in every story, she always mentioned Serena Mom, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Dinner became family time. The 3 of them sat around the kitchen table instead of the large, cold dining room, talking about their days, laughing over small things. Rosa began cooking more, saying she liked seeing the table lively again, the way it used to be. And in the middle of all of it, there were moments that belonged only to Nikolai and Serena. Their eyes would meet across the table and linger longer than they needed to. Their hands would brush when they washed dishes together, and neither of them hurried to pull away. They would sit side by side on the sofa after Ivy fell asleep, shoulder to shoulder, sometimes talking, sometimes simply listening to the fire crackle in the hearth. 1 week after the night they shared everything, Nikolai kissed her for the first time. They were standing on the back porch, looking out at the garden blanketed in white snow beneath the moonlight. Ivy had been asleep for hours. The air was bitterly cold, but Serena did not want to go inside. She wanted to stay here, in this moment, with the man beside her. Nikolai turned and looked at her, his gray eyes shining under the stars. He lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to step back if she wanted to. His fingers touched her cheek, gently sweeping a loose strand of hair behind her ear. I've wanted to do this for a long time, he whispered. Then he leaned down and kissed her. The kiss was light as a butterfly settling on a flower, but it set Serena on fire from the inside. She had forgotten what it felt like to be kissed like this. Not a kiss that demanded, that claimed, but a kiss that offered, that cherished, as if she were something so precious he was afraid of breaking her. When they pulled apart, they were both breathing hard, their breath rising in white clouds in the cold air. What does this mean? Serena asked, her voice trembling. It means I'm in love with you. Nikolai said it simply, as if it were the most obvious truth in the world. It means I want more. I want you here not just because of a job, but because you choose to be here. With me, with Ivy, with us. Serena's heart raced. She had been afraid of this, afraid of opening up, afraid of trusting, afraid of loving again after everything Marcus had done to her. But when she looked into Nikolai's eyes, she did not see Marcus. She did not see control or possession. She saw gentleness, respect, love waiting for her to accept it. I'm scared, she admitted. I'm scared to love again. I'm scared too. Nikolai took her hand and placed it over his chest, where his heart was pounding hard. But maybe we can be scared together. Serena smiled. For the first time in a long time, a smile with no hidden sorrow behind it. Together, she repeated. The next morning, Ivy caught them holding hands at the breakfast table. She did not look surprised. She only looked at them with ocean blue eyes sparkling, gave a thumbs up, and said, I knew it. Daddy looks at Serena Mom the way he used to look at Mama Katya, when he was happy. Nikolai laughed. A clear sound Serena had never heard from him before. My daughter is so smart, he said. Yes, I know, Ivy replied, and went right back to eating her blini as if her father falling in love with the housekeeper was the most normal thing in the world. And maybe, in this family, it was normal. Because they had learned that love did not need to follow a pattern. It only needed to be true. Happiness did not last long before the ghost of the past came back. 1 week after their first kiss, Victor knocked on the door of Nikolai's study, his face set like stone. Serena was in the room with Nikolai, going over the documents their lawyer had sent about the new restraining order. She looked up when she saw the Russian man's expression, and she knew at once that something was wrong. Urgent report, Victor said, his voice tight. Marcus Webb showed up at Ivy's preschool this morning. The blood in Serena's body turned to ice. What? Nikolai shot to his feet, the swivel chair skidding back and striking the wall. He dared to go near my daughter? He came at dismissal time, asked the teacher about a woman named Serena, said she was his wife and he was looking for her. Victor glanced at Serena, worry filling his eyes. Luckily, our security team was there. They recognized him from the photograph in the file and immediately got Ivy to the car. He did not reach the child. Is Ivy all right? Serena asked, her voice trembling. She is all right. A little frightened because they had to leave quickly, but she is all right. Nikolai said nothing. He stood with his back to them, both hands braced on the desk. Serena could see the rigid set of his shoulders, every muscle holding back something violent, something immense. When he turned around, his gray eyes were no longer steel. They were ice, cold, ruthless, terrifying in a way Serena had never seen before. This was not Nikolai, the man who kissed her gently under moonlight. This was Nikolai Kensington, the mafia boss all of Chicago feared. He dared to touch my daughter, he said, each word dropping like a cold stone. He dared to come to Ivy's school, to threaten my family. Nikolai, Serena began. No. He lifted a hand, cutting her off. I have been patient long enough. I tried to play by the rules, restraining orders, lawyers, the legal way. He shook his head, but he does not understand that language. He understands only one thing. AMSO. What do you want me to do? Victor asked, calm as if he were asking about the weather. Find out everything about him. Everything. Any corruption he is tied to. Any colleagues who cover for him. Any secrets he is hiding. Nikolai paused. And I want to know where he is. Every second. Every minute. Where he goes, who he meets, what he does. I want to know it all. Victor nodded and left. Serena stood and walked to Nikolai. She placed her hand on his arm, feeling the hard tension of muscle under the fabric of his shirt. What are you going to do? She asked softly. Nikolai looked down at her, and for a moment, the ice in his eyes eased, just a little. I am going to end this, he said. Once and for all. I do not care if he is a police officer or anything else. No one threatens my family without paying for it. I do not want you to get into trouble because of me. Even. Nikolai lifted her chin and looked straight into her eyes. You are family, Serena. Ivy sees you as her mother. He hesitated. I love you. And I will do anything to protect the people I love. Anything." The way he said it, with absolute certainty, made Serena feel both frightened and safe. She knew Nikolai was not making empty promises. She knew he was capable of things ordinary people would not even dare to imagine. And the most frightening part was that she was not sure she wanted to stop him. Nikolai did not wait another day. That night, he left the estate alone, wearing a black leather jacket, his gray eyes cold as winter ice. Serena stood at the living room window and watched his car vanish into the dark, her chest tightening with worry. She did not ask where he was going. She did not need to ask. She knew. The bar sat on the south side of Chicago, the kind of place Marcus often drifted to after work. Victor had investigated carefully and reported that tonight, Marcus would be there alone, drinking, complaining to friends about the wife who had run away. Nikolai walked into the bar as if he owned it. And in a way, he did. The place was on his territory, protected by his people, and the owner owed him more favors than he could count. Marcus sat at the counter with his back to the door, a glass of whiskey in his hand, already half gone. He did not sense the danger closing in until Nikolai slid onto the stool beside him. "Marcus Webb," Nikolai said, as calmly as if he were making small talk about the weather. "At last we meet." Marcus turned, his eyes cloudy with alcohol narrowing as he studied the stranger. "Who are you?" he asked, his words thick. "I am the man you should have known about a long time ago." Nikolai signaled the bartender to pour him a drink. "I am the man keeping your former wife." Marcus's eyes widened. The drunken haze evaporated in a single heartbeat as he realized who stood beside him. He had heard of Nikolai Kensington. Everyone in the circles that mattered had heard. He just never imagined that man had anything to do with Serena. "Serena is my wife," Marcus growled, his hand tightening around the glass. "She belongs to me. You have no right to keep her." "Former wife," Nikolai corrected, still calm. "And she does not belong to anyone. She is a human being, not an object." "What do you know about her? How long have you known her?" Marcus ground out. "I lived with her for 4 years. She is mine." Nikolai took a sip of his drink, unhurried, unbothered. His composure only fed Marcus's anger. "Do you know who I am?" Marcus lowered his voice, leaning in as if sharing a secret. "I am a cop. I have coworkers everywhere. I can turn your life into hell." Nikolai laughed, softly, almost gently, yet so cold that people nearby turned to look. "Are you threatening me?" he asked, setting his glass down and turning fully toward Marcus. "You, a police officer suspended under internal investigation for violent conduct, are threatening me?" Marcus's face drained. "How do you know?" "I know everything about you, Marcus Webb." Nikolai leaned in, his voice dropping into a dangerous whisper. "I know you took bribes from the Martinez gang last year. I know you covered up a drug case on the south side. I know you have a bank account in the Cayman Islands that the department does not know about." He smiled without warmth. "Do you want me to keep going?" Marcus's face shifted from pale to a dark, angry flush, fear and fury tangling together. He lurched to his feet, the glass slamming against the counter as it tipped and spilled. "Are you trying to threaten me?" "No, I'm giving you a choice." Nikolai stood as well, a full head taller, dominating him with height and with something heavier than height. "Choice 1. You disappear from Serena's life, completely, forever. You do not look for her. You do not contact her. You do not speak her name. You leave Chicago and you never come back. And if I refuse?" Nikolai stepped closer, until only a breath of space remained between them. His gray eyes locked onto Marcus's, and for the first time, Marcus Webb felt real fear. "Choice 2, Nikolai said, his voice smooth as velvet and sharp as a blade, "is that I show you why people fear the name Kensington. And believe me, you will not like that choice." Marcus swallowed hard, survival screaming in the back of his mind. But arrogance, and the remnants of alcohol, pushed him into the worst decision of his life. "I am not afraid of you," he said, his voice shaking even as he tried to sound hard. "Serena is mine, and I am going to take her back." Nikolai studied him for a long moment, then stepped back, his face unreadable. "You just chose choice 2, he said evenly. "I hope you do not regret it." Then he turned and walked away, leaving Marcus standing there with rage boiling in his blood, and a fear he would not admit, creeping slowly up his spine. Marcus refused to listen to the warning. The next night, drunk and furious, he decided to prove that no one could threaten him. He drove to the Kensington estate at 2 o'clock in the morning, climbed over the back fence, believing the darkness would hide him. He was wrong. Infrared cameras captured every step from the moment his hand touched the fence. Motion sensors detected him before his feet ever reached the grass. The security team watched him on their screens, waiting, letting him move deeper onto the grounds before they acted. Victor called Nikolai at 2:15. Serena was asleep when she heard the knock on her door. She jolted awake, her heart hammering, the survival instinct from 4 years living with Marcus still alive in her bones. She opened the door and found Nikolai there, already fully dressed, his gray eyes glinting in the dark. "Marcus is on the property," he said, calm in a way that felt almost unreal. "Security has him contained. The police are on the way." Serena's legs went weak. "Did he get in?" He climbed the fence. "Illegal entry onto private property." Nikolai took her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. "This time he does not get away. We have evidence. We have witnesses. And the police coming are my people." They went downstairs together. Through the living room window, Serena could see flashlight beams sweeping across the garden, could hear the security team shouting. And then, from far away, the wail of police sirens growing closer. Marcus was caught in the eastern corner of the garden, right beside the stone angel statue Katya had chosen years ago. He was so drunk he could barely stand, still screaming for his wife, while 2 security men held his arms pinned behind his back. When the police car pulled up at the gate, Nikolai led Serena outside. She did not want to see Marcus. She had hoped she would never have to face him again. But she knew she had to do this. She had to end it. Marcus lifted his head when he saw her step out of the front doors, hand in hand with Nikolai. His bleary eyes flashed with a wild, unhinged fury. "Serena!" he roared, thrashing against the men restraining him. "You're mine. You hear me? You will always be mine. This bastard can't keep you forever." Serena stood there, looking at the man she once called her husband. The man who hit her, who choked her, who frightened her into silence for 4 years. She looked at him, and for the first time, she did not feel afraid. She felt pity. She stepped forward and stopped a few paces away, close enough for him to hear her clearly, far enough to be safe. Nikolai stood directly behind her, his hand resting lightly on her back, a quiet reminder that she was not alone. "Marcus," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I am not yours. I never was. I belong to myself. And you have no power over me anymore." "You don't get to leave me," Marcus bellowed. "You're nothing without me." Serena shook her head, a sad smile flickering across her mouth. "Without you, I am everything," she said. "I am strong. I am loved. I have a family. I have a future." She paused. "And you? You will have nothing." She turned and walked away, not looking back even as Marcus kept screaming behind her. Nikolai walked at her side, his hand gripping hers, and she felt as if a massive stone had finally been lifted off her chest. The police put Marcus into the car, and the sirens faded into the night. Victor came to them with a tablet in his hand. "The security camera video has been sent to the prosecutor," he reported, along with the record of restraining order violations, illegal entry, and the evidence of corruption we collected. He glanced at Nikolai. "Your lawyer says he will not be released on bail. And with all these charges, he is facing at least 8 years in prison." 8 years. 8 years with Marcus behind bars. 8 years Serena could live without fearing his shadow at the door. She looked up at Nikolai, her eyes filling. "Is it over?" she whispered. Nikolai pulled her into his arms, his lips pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "It's over," he confirmed. "He will never hurt you again. Never." Serena buried her face against his chest and cried. Not from fear, not from pain. She cried from relief, from freedom, from finally getting out. And on the second floor, behind the bedroom curtains, Ivy watched with ocean blue eyes shining. She had woken to the noise, had seen everything from beginning to end. And when she saw Serena Mom standing straight, facing the cruel man, the little girl smiled. "Serena, Mom is brave," she whispered into the darkness. "Like Mama Katya, like who I will become." 2 months after the night Marcus was arrested, the Kensington estate was filled with light and laughter. Marcus had been sentenced to 8 years in prison after a trial that lasted 2 weeks. The evidence of corruption, abuse, illegal entry, and restraining order violations piled so high that no lawyer could save him. Serena testified in court, standing straight before the bench, telling the story of 4 years of hell in a steady voice she never believed she could have. Nikolai sat in the row behind her, his gray eyes never leaving her for a single second, like an anchor keeping her from sinking into the sea of pain inside her memories. When the judge read the sentence, Serena cried, not because revenge had been satisfied, but because, at last, she was truly free. Life after that began to rebuild itself from broken pieces. Serena moved into a bedroom on the second floor, a room beside Ivy's and across from Nikolai's. She was not the housekeeper anymore. She was part of the family, officially, undeniably. Nikolai changed the paperwork, adding her name to the list of people authorized to make medical and educational decisions for Ivy, as if she were the child's biological mother. Ivy continued seeing her therapist, but the sessions were gentler now. She talked nonstop, telling stories about everything, from dreams to fears, from memories of Mama Katya to her love for Serena Mom. Dr. Chen told Nikolai that Ivy was making extraordinary progress, that she would be all right, that love and stability were the best medicine for any wound. Serena began her own healing, too. She enrolled in courses to earn back her nursing certification, the one Marcus had forced her to abandon years before. Every night, after Ivy went to sleep, Serena sat in the library with her books, reviewing, studying, preparing for the exam. Nikolai often sat nearby, working on his laptop, but sometimes he would look up, catch her eye, and smile as if simply seeing her was enough to make him happy. One evening, when she was struggling with a particularly difficult chapter, Nikolai set his laptop aside and moved to sit closer. "You're going to do it," he said, his voice gentle. "You can do anything you want." "You really believe that?" she asked, doubtful. "I know it." He took her hand. "You survived 4 years with him. You had the courage to run. You stood up in court and faced him. What is an exam compared to that?" Serena smiled, and for the first time, she believed him. Ivy changed too, in subtle but undeniable ways. She no longer checked the locks every night. She no longer flinched at loud noises. She ran through the garden with laughter echoing behind her, drew bright pictures with 4 people instead of 3, and called Serena Mom, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. One Sunday afternoon, as the 3 of them sat in the living room watching cartoons, Ivy suddenly lifted her head and asked, "Daddy, will Serena Mom stay with us forever?" Nikolai looked at Serena, his gray eyes full of what he did not say. "I hope so," he said, "if Serena Mom agrees." Ivy turned to Serena, ocean blue eyes wide with hope. "Do you agree?" Serena looked at the little girl, looked at the man beside her, and felt her heart fill with something so warm it almost hurt. "Yes," she said, her voice thick. "Yes, forever." 3 months after the forever promise, Nikolai led Serena into the back garden on a full moon night. She had no reason to suspect anything when he said he wanted a walk. They did it often, wandering between the flower beds Rosa tended, talking about everything and nothing at all. But tonight the garden was different. Tiny lanterns glittered from the branches, forming a path of light that led to the fountain at the center. White roses were arranged everywhere, their sweet perfume filling the cool air of a spring night. Serena stopped, lifting a hand to cover her mouth. "Nikolai, what is this?" He did not answer right away. He only took her hand and guided her along the glowing path, step by step, until they stood before the fountain. Water whispered in the quiet night, moonlight scattering on the surface like thousands of tiny diamonds. And there, behind a rosebush, Ivy was trying to hide and failing completely. She wore her favorite pink dress, her hair braided into 2 pigtails, and she was holding up a sign scribbled in crayon. "Mom, say yes." Serena laughed through tears. "Ivy, what are you doing here?" "I'm helping Daddy," Ivy announced, then slapped a hand over her mouth as if she remembered she was supposed to be quiet. I'm hiding. Mom can't see me." "Arstanad." Nikolai shook his head, but Serena could see he was fighting a smile. Then he turned to Serena, and all the humor drained away, leaving only seriousness and tenderness in his gray eyes. "I prepared a long speech," he began. "I practiced all week, but standing here, looking at you, I forgot everything." Serena's heart beat so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Nikolai took both her hands and held them tight in his. "Serena, you came when I thought my life would be darkness forever. You healed my daughter. You healed me too. You gave me a reason to laugh again, to hope again, to love again." His voice trembled. "I'm not perfect. My world is dangerous. My past is dark. But I promise I will spend the rest of my life protecting you, loving you, cherishing you every day." He dropped to one knee, and Serena heard Ivy let out a tiny squeal of excitement from her not very successful hiding place. Nikolai pulled a black velvet box from his jacket pocket and opened it. Inside was a ring with an ocean blue gemstone sparkling beneath the moonlight, the same blue as Ivy's eyes, the same blue as Katya's in the photographs. "Serena Whitmore," he said, his voice steady even though his eyes were bright with tears. "Will you be my wife?" Serena could not speak. Her throat tightened with the rush of feeling. She looked at the man kneeling before her, the man who had saved her from hell, who had given her a family, who had loved her even knowing every scar she carried. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, clearer. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Nikolai rose and slid the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling slightly. Then he pulled her into his arms and kissed her beneath the moon, and Serena felt as if the whole world had stopped just to witness this moment. "I knew it," Ivy shouted, bursting from her hiding place and throwing herself around both their legs. "I knew Mom would say yes. I told Daddy. Mom loves Daddy. Mom loves me. We're a family." Nikolai lifted his daughter up, and the three of them stood there, holding one another in the warm circle of their arms, surrounded by light and roses. Serena cried. Nikolai cried. Ivy cried too, even though she did not know why she was crying. In the distance, Rosa stood in the back doorway, wiping tears with the corner of her apron. Victor stood beside her, and even his normally cold face held the trace of a rare smile. "She deserves it," Victor said quietly. "They both do," Rosa answered. "All three." And in the garden, under the full moon, a new family was officially born. Not by blood, not by paperwork, but by love, by choice, by wounds they had healed together. It was the most beautiful kind of family. 3 months after the night of the proposal, the Kensington estate overflowed with fresh flowers and laughter. The wedding was held in the garden, in the very place where Nikolai had gone down on one knee beneath the moon and asked Serena to be his wife. White chairs were lined up neatly on the lush green grass, lanterns shimmered in the branches overhead, and at the end of the aisle stood an arch of white roses, like a gate leading into a new life. Serena stood before the mirror in the room that had once belonged to Katya, her pale mint wedding dress wrapping her like it had been sewn for her alone. Ivy had chosen the color when they went dress shopping together. Mama Katya liked white, the little girl had explained with solemn seriousness. Serena Mom should have her own color, a color for a new beginning. Rosa stood behind her, adjusting the edge of the dress, her eyes red with emotion. On Serena's wrist was her grandmother's silver bracelet, the only thing she had carried with her when she ran from Marcus. Now, it was no longer a symbol of a painful past. It was a thread connecting who she once was to who she had become. "You look beautiful," Rosa said, her voice thick. Katya would be happy if she could see. Serena smiled, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I hope she's watching." Music drifted up from the garden, signaling that the ceremony was about to begin. Ivy went first, in a mint dress like her mother's, a small flower basket in her hands. She scattered white rose petals along the aisle, waved to everyone she knew, and wore the brightest smile Serena had ever seen. This was no longer the silent, frightened little girl Serena had met 3 months earlier. This was a happy child, loved, safe, and trusting the world around her. Then it was Serena's turn. She walked alone down the flower-lined path. No one escorted her to the altar because her father had left when she was still small, and her mother had been gone for a long time. But she did not feel lonely. She felt strong. She was stepping into her new life on her own 2 feet, by her own choice. Nikolai stood at the end of the aisle in a black suit, his curls neatly combed back, his gray eyes shining in the late afternoon sun. When he saw her, he did not try to hide his tears. He let them fall freely, and it made Serena love him a little more. The ceremony was simple, but full of meaning. They spoke their vows before the people who mattered most. Victor stood as a witness, his usually cold face softened in a way that felt almost unreal. Rosa cried through the entire ceremony, and Ivy stood between them, holding both their hands, as if she were the thread tying together 2 hearts that had once been shattered. When the priest declared them husband and wife, Nikolai kissed Serena to the applause of everyone present, but the first one to hug them after the kiss was Ivy. "We're a real family now," she shouted, wrapping her arms tightly around both of them. "Forever, always." After the ceremony, Ivy led Serena to a quiet corner of the garden, where a photograph of Katya had been placed with care among the white roses. "I want to introduce you to Mama Katya," the little girl said, very serious. Serena knelt beside the photograph, looking into the ocean blue eyes of the woman in the picture, the eyes Ivy had inherited. "Mama Katya," Ivy began, her clear voice carrying through the hush. "This is Serena, Mom. She's so good. She takes care of me and Daddy. She makes Daddy laugh again. I love you up in heaven. I love Serena, Mom, down here on earth too. And I have enough love for both my moms." Serena held Ivy close, tears streaming down her cheeks, but her mouth curved into a smile. 1 year after the wedding, on an ordinary Sunday morning, Serena woke in Nikolai's arms and felt how completely her life had changed. She had passed her nursing certification exam and was working at a private clinic, helping people who needed care. Ivy was 7 now, bright and lively, no longer having nightmares, no longer afraid. Nikolai was still Nikolai, cold to the outside world, but melting entirely when he was with his wife and daughter. That morning at breakfast, as the three of them sat around the kitchen table, Ivy suddenly looked up and asked, "Serena, Mom, when do I get a baby?" Serena and Nikolai looked at each other, a secret smile passing between them. Serena placed her hand over her belly, where a tiny life was growing day by day. "Maybe sooner than you think," she said. It took Ivy a few seconds to understand. Then she squealed with joy, jumped down from her chair, and threw her arms around Serena. "I'm going to be a big sister. I'm going to be a big sister." Nikolai stood and wrapped his arms around the two most important girls in his life, and for the first time in so many years, he felt his heart become whole. Standing in the bright kitchen, where the scent of blini and honey still lingered the way it had on the day Ivy first spoke, Serena looked back on her journey. From an abused woman to a survivor, from someone running to someone who had found a home, from a broken heart to a complete family. Healing was not a destination, it was a journey. And that journey was so much more beautiful with someone walking beside you. This story leaves us with a profound lesson about the power of love and courage. Sometimes the strongest voice comes from those who have been silent for too long. Sometimes the most wounded people carry the greatest ability to heal others. And sometimes family is not where you were born, but where you are loved and accepted. Serena found her voice when she bravely stepped out of the darkness. Ivy found her voice again when she wanted to protect the people she loved. And Nikolai found the light again when he opened his heart to love once more. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel, tap like, and share this video so more people can hear meaningful stories every day. How did this story make you feel? Did it connect to your real life in any way? We would truly love to read what's deep in your heart in the comments below. Wishing everyone watching this video good health, a joyful life, peace, and happiness each day. Thank you for being here with us. Goodbye, and we will see you in the next video.